Okay, so welcome to the Edmonton Bitcoin meetup in January. As I was mentioning a moment or two ago, this was our January meetup last year, so we had a very enthusiastic bunch at that time. I hope they're all doing well. But yeah, there's a bunch of us regulars in there too as well. And yeah, those are fun nights. We had a bar, so they went late. Okay, so this is what we have on tap for today. So I got a series of announcements, just current events. We recapped the price. Previous meetups, we've gone over recent news. I'm going to skip that today. That just seems to go on for a long time. What I want to propose instead is we have the Slack group, which I'll talk about in a moment. So yeah, just keeping up as a community on sort of like what we think about the current news and all that, hoping to move that more to like a Slack kind of throughout the month. Have those discussions, so I'll plug that in a moment. So yeah, we'll just talk about sort of the price trends and some of the other metrics. So unfortunately, I got an email this morning. Our guest had to cancel on us, unforeseen circumstances. He's a pretty intense guy. He has an intense job, so we're going to reschedule that for another time.
Okay, I'm going to go now. That's the whole reason I came.
It's going to be better.
But we improvised something that's sort of on the same topic, just sort of on our take of what kind of the scope of affairs the Edmonton police has to deal with. So yeah, you get to kind of hear. So it's a bit of a loose presentation, but I think it's still good. And then yeah, that generally blends into networking, and you can stay as late as you want talking about Bitcoin. A lot of the times we migrate to a venue elsewhere on White Ave at some point afterwards. Probably sometimes a little too late for a weeknight, just a warning. But yeah, just hang around after, filter out when you feel, or come with us for a drink. Washrooms through this door, and you go right. There's 2 washrooms. There's no gender on the washroom, so use either one. Please keep it clean. Okay, yeah, so this is the Bitcoin Solutions space. I do not work for Bitcoin Solutions. The only person that actually works for Bitcoin Solutions is Julian. Adam O'Brien, who owns it, has set up this space for our use very generously. So he's part of the reason we can have these regular meetups. It's an easily accessible space, so it's a huge service to the community. And so yeah, Bitcoin Solutions does brokerages, ATMs, and various other services. I think these banners here explain it. So yeah, thank you to Bitcoin Solutions. But 6 or 7 of us in the room are the Edmonton Bitcoin Association, and we have a variety of different businesses unrelated to Bitcoin Solutions that are sort of our own thing. Some of it overlaps. Bitcash does ATMs, Graaf does some brokerages, and a couple of the others are various other web stuff. And then also, yeah, the individuals that are also just putting in sweat into keeping these meetups running. And then yeah, also in the future we'll hopefully expanding. Maybe we can get some sponsors to buy us pizza, for example. If you know of anybody that would be willing to do that, we'd certainly love to put your logo on here. Okay, so I want to talk about the Slack group. So we just started this. It's just a very quiet group, but we're looking to build it. I haven't marketed. Nobody, I believe, has marketed this Slack group outside of this meetup. We're kind of hoping to just sort of seed it with people that kind of show up and kind of we all know each other in real life. If we have a good community there going, then I'd like to find ways to integrate that into some of the other developer channels that are on Slack. There's a couple through Startup Edmonton, YegSec, that Josh here puts on. There's Dev Edmonton and these kind of things. So showing like a strong community, if you want to help out, just get in there, participate, ask questions, share news, that kind of thing. We'd really appreciate that. So please do that. We also have a Twitter account that we're just showing all the meetups and all the various things we want to highlight. So you can check that out on Twitter. And yeah, we still have the WhatsApp channel. We're still keeping that around. It's a little bit quieter nowadays. We have a YouTube channel. Hopefully this presentation will go up there shortly. We have one other presentation from a couple months ago. Yeah, we're hoping to have good content for people that find our meetup later so they can go back and see what we were talking about in the past. And then, yeah, we also have an Instagram account. I'm not sure. Do we have anything on there? Not yet.
Could be a photo.
Maybe a photo. Okay. Okay, so upcoming events. So this Saturday is the Bitcoin Hack Day. So right here, Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's just sort of like come, hang out, talk about Bitcoin for a day. We bring our laptops to work on projects. I'll talk about, I got some more slides of the photos right after this. But yeah, bring your laptop to work on something. Can provide a little bit of tech support if you want it, some ideas bouncing off. We can help you out or whatever else. It's all day. You can drop in for as long or as little as you want, say hi, that kind of thing, see what we're working on. Sometimes, we go for lunch too in the middle of the day. So that's a good social thing. We do the Bitcoin beginner meetup every month on the second Tuesday of every month. We just wanted to have sort of an open forum. When we have sort of these more technical topics, some people show up and it goes over their heads. So we kind of wanted to provide a space for people that are kind of struggling to wrap their head around a lot of this. Just sort of a place where we can kind of cover the beginner topics and allow sort of any question where people can kind of feel free to not be intimidated. So that's on the second Tuesday of every month. So the next one's February 12th. The next iteration of this meetup is Pavel's volunteered to do that, although with our rescheduling, we might shuffle it up. We'll have some stuff out in the middle, in a couple weeks ahead of that one. But Wednesday, February 12th, right here. We have that every third Wednesday of every month. Future stuff, Dave also volunteered to do an upcoming presentation before tax season. Death, Taxes, and Crypto is his title, so hopefully we can get that in before tax season. And then also just want to mention, none of us are officially affiliated with this event, but there's also a 2-day event called The Bitcoin Rodeo Presents the Blockchain and Technology Symposium. So it's a little bit expensive. It kind of goes down into the blockchain type space that some of the topics we don't really keep in scope on this meetup, but if you're interested in that, some of us will be here or will be at that. And then we're always we're hoping to keep good content going through the whole year and beyond. So if you have ideas or want to present, please let us know, and we will try to work that in. So very briefly on the Hack Day, this is Dean's project. He has got a little arcade cabinet. He's trying to do a Lightning Network integration such that if you're playing games, the way you load quarters into it is you pay via Lightning Network. So he's figuring out all the stuff needed, and that's like an e-ink display to put the QR code on it. This is me at the last Hack Day, and I'm working on this device, which is now painted. You can see at the back of the room, the orange Bitcoin wall hanging thing that has speakers and announces every block that comes. It's very annoying. It's also a jukebox. So the obvious thing is I put a Lightning Network node on it such that you can pay and cue a song on the jukebox. So I'd be happy to demo that after the meetup. And talk to you guys all night long if you want to about that. But it's still work in progress. The missing piece is this e-paper interface for showing the QR codes. Also very briefly, you'll notice there's a Pepsi machine. That just came yesterday, and we're also pulling that apart, trying to figure out how to get Lightning payments working to buy drinks. So get the free drinks while they're free. Otherwise, you'll be installing a Bitcoin Lightning wallet to get drinks at future meetups. Okay, so last meetup, December 19th, that's where we're at on the prices. More or less, we're about the same. We're down a little bit on Bitcoin. Ethereum, for reference, pumped a little bit. Dominance, mostly boring. Peak hash rate, the hash rate seems to be going sideways, which is healthy for the price. Yeah. So actually the difficulty adjustment is going up, so that's a sign that miners are still making money and churning out the hashes. So also starting to track the halving estimates of the block reward halving, which is sort of an economic impact on the mining and sort of a supply contraction on the network. And it's calculated based on a number of factors, including hash rate. Hash rate's sort of the dominant one, but it's scheduled for a particular block. So there's a bunch of sites that are kind of projecting out when they estimate that event will occur. And there's a couple different ways you can estimate them. And as we get closer, they'll hopefully converge. That's a new block got announced. And it names every block and reads you an inspirational phrase. The volume's turned down. We'll crank it up later. Okay, yeah, so as we mentioned, this presentation is canceled. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Pavel, who's going to do a few slides, and then I'm going to do a few slides after that.
Give me a second, guys. If you guys want to sit down, I'm free to. Take me a second to clip this on. Make sure you got the volume. Yeah, so unfortunately, we couldn't have our guests, but we want to have some similar content, so that's what we're going for here. So we'll do an overview of some of the scams and exploits that we see. Obviously, we can't cover all of them because there's just like so many. So we'll start with some of the simple, more obvious ones, and then we'll get into the more complicated, technical ones down the presentation. So why are there so many? Well, first of all, it's a new technology, right? It's only been around for about 10 years. Bitcoin itself, and then some of the other cryptocurrencies are definitely more recent. And then you add in the element of irreversible payments, which makes it very difficult to get your money back, and it's very enticing for someone to try to use Bitcoin for that purpose. And awareness is obviously still low. People might have heard of Bitcoin, but I think a lot fewer know how to use it properly, and especially the dangers as well. So things like that, I mean, over time, they'll get better, but at its current point, it's really, I'd say, a dark area for the space. And obviously, the pseudo-anonymous nature, even though Bitcoin isn't completely anonymous, it is kind of easy if you know what you're doing to conceal your identity. And then there's also some of the other cryptocurrencies like Monero, where it's very simple to be almost fully anonymous. And then enforcement, they're always playing catch up, just like in the early days of the internet. It takes a while for not only the laws to catch up, but also for police to develop the resources and research and training for the staff to go after some of these crimes. So the basics. So a lot of these are mostly involving social engineering, and they don't necessarily need to be face to face or in the same location. So a lot of the really common ones we hear about are romance and inheritance scams. So basically what happens is a scammer tries to entice a lonely person and pretend to be in a relationship with them, pretend that they want to get married. Oh, I need the money to help my family, or to move here, or do this and do that. It's a twist on classic scams with the element of Bitcoin. And then, of course, inheritance scams. We've all heard of the Nigerian prince. You're going to be a multimillionaire. You just have to send me this little bit of Bitcoin, and then I swear I'll send you $100 million or whatnot. So, really, a lot of the same classic ones that we see, just with the added twist of Bitcoin. Something we've heard about a little bit more recently is overdue utility bill scams. So someone might get an email or a phone call saying, "Oh, this is Epcor, your power bill is past due, so we're gonna cut everything off unless you pay us this much in Bitcoin." Unfortunately, that's becoming more common. And similar to that, you have something with Canada Revenue Agency scams. So these were around obviously before Bitcoin. A couple of years in the news, we saw something involving iTunes gift cards, where someone claiming to be the CRA wanted the person to pay him like $10,000 or $20,000 of overdue taxes in iTunes gift cards. Always for the purpose that they're a little bit harder to trace compared to something to do with a bank transfer, right? And with Bitcoin, obviously, it's even more difficult. And then you have things like the general impersonation, so people pretending to be friends, employees, or employers, friends in the military, getting these emails and calls. Unfortunately, they target a lot of seniors this way. As you've seen, they might get part of your identity or your email and pretend to be a grandson or a nephew or something, say I'm in trouble, I need Bitcoin, or else, yada, yada, yada. So those are unfortunately pretty common. And then you get something a little bit more obviously nefarious and dangerous, and in terms of actual robbery. So back before a lot of the infrastructure was kind of built in Bitcoin, a popular method of exchange was in person. There's something called local Bitcoins, where you would agree, or two people would agree to meet in person, usually with cash, to exchange Bitcoin. And what we started seeing a lot happen is that obviously people would be robbed at gunpoint. And so that is always a threat whenever you're kind of dealing with Bitcoin, especially in cash, or if you're at an unsafe place. And things like ATM thefts. I mean, I don't know how many of you saw that clip a couple of years ago of the truck ramming through the convenience store and taking the ATM, putting a chain around it and just dragging it off. So it's more or less a smash and grab. And, just like normal ATMs are a target, Bitcoin ATMs are obviously a target as well. As something else, kidnapping, extortion. Definitely a lot more severe. We saw this happen just this past year with an exchange owner in Ukraine, where basically he was kidnapped, and supposedly he might have been tortured to reveal his private keys or his passwords to give up his Bitcoin. So things like that are a possibility that people will try. If they think you have a lot of Bitcoin, they may try to do something like that to extract that money. Wow. So, and extortion is also in a similar kind of vein, where they would, if they have some sensitive information, they can try to extort you. And obviously, it's easier to obfuscate, the Bitcoin flow of money and where it goes to, in this case. And ransomware. Ransomware is basically, in a lot of cases, what happens is an attacker will infect your computer or device, or get some kind of data or information that is really important to you. So say you're a business and you have a database with all your customer information, right? And they get access to that database, and they basically encrypt it or lock it with their own kind of private keys. And they go to the owner and say, you're not going to get your information back, or I'm going to leak it, or this or that, unless you pay me Bitcoin. And basically the only way, in a lot of cases, for the owner to get their data back is to pay the attacker. So this is definitely one of the really serious ones, because it definitely goes all the way up to the big corporate levels. Instead of hackers just getting the information, now they can actually encrypt it, ransomware. Then it might be a little bit easier for them to get away with the money as well.
Even like cities like the subway in San Francisco, like the critical infrastructure.
Absolutely.
If they can shut it down, but if they pay millions of dollars, they'll let it run again, right?
Yeah, this is like one of those kind of nightmare scenarios. I know there was a movie with Bruce Willis a couple of years ago, or was it one of the Die Hards, where they had this kind of scenario where, like, if someone takes control of critical infrastructure, they can definitely do a lot of damage, and it puts either the government or corporation in a really vulnerable spot. Okay, and then the rest. Obviously, there are endless possibilities. This one, particularly an exit scam, is something that's happened here in Edmonton recently, where we had an exchange called Maple Exchange. Although a lot of us didn't hear about it, what happened is they basically shut down and said the customer funds are gone. So it's not exactly clear what happened, but this is something that's common in the Bitcoin space, and why you should not leave any Bitcoin on an exchange is because sometimes they just might say, hey, like, we're done, we're gone, all the Bitcoin that you deposit on exchange, that's ours, it's gone, and they can say it's stolen or hacked or whatnot, but at the end of the day, your funds are lost. And so exit scams are something definitely to be aware of when you are transacting on exchange. It's always best practice that is, as soon as you put or buy the Bitcoin, take it off. So try not to leave it in the hands of a third party. And then money laundering, if someone is obviously doing crime, with Bitcoin, what they may try to do is solicit you to for a job, say, I need a purchaser, and I'm going to send you this money, and I need you to go buy these tools and whatnot. So they basically use the person as a mule for trying to clean that money, which has obviously been tainted by some sort of criminal activity. And then similar to some of the other things, we talked about bomb threats. They call in a bomb threat, we're going to blow this place up if you don't pay Bitcoin. And I mean, that's happened, I think, a few times. And
In the past couple of weeks,
yeah, in the past couple of weeks. So
I think it was one afternoon, all over the course of the 2-3 days they did it in quite a place across North America.
yeah,
Once people understood that it was happening all over the show, they understood this was just a blanket scam they were trying to run across all these businesses, but there was a lot of businesses where the staff were all kicked out of the building. It was trying to figure out where the bomb might be in the building. So
yeah.
it's very easy to do because it's remote. You can do it from anywhere in the world.
You forgot the one. Oh, I saw you on the internet doing naughty things to yourself. You better send
Oh.
me Bitcoin.
That's actually good ones. Yeah, that's actually, sorry.
And they
yeah.
actually, and
Yeah.
I've seen it where they have the correct password or a
Yeah.
correct password.
Yeah, that's actually one I should have mentioned. Yeah, another common one is even if they, let's say, even if they don't, sometimes they actually are able to get a recording of you for whatever reason, and it might be that social engineering where, they're like, oh, I'm your girlfriend, could you show me a little something?
Right.
They pretend to be that, impersonation, and then they have that, that information, that video on them, and then they threaten them basically to release that if they don't pay.
Usually coming from Ivory Coast.
It's commonly referred to as sextortion.
Sextortion?
Nice.
But it comes from your own email address too, though.
Yeah, there was one. It's basically it's a malware that takes over and emails yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it comes from your own email.
And they actually will go into your data, grab some of your old passwords or the passwords that are saved on the computer, and say, "We've got your passwords." Blah blah blah. They'll give you one of them.
Yeah.
And
It's creepy to see.
Yeah, it used to be that they would do these sorts of things and they would want a credit card or PayPal or something like that. But I mean, with Bitcoin, it's just makes it a whole lot easier for them to potentially get away with it. So,
Yeah, that's what they're asking for.
so those are more or less the basic ones, and then we'll have Jarrett, if you want to present on some of the not so obvious ones, and potentially maybe even more scary from a person's perspective.
All right, so back when Beats by Dre were cool, there was a story where so these are basically high-end headphones that would sell for like $300, but really the cost to make them was $20 or $30 in China, right? So the supply chain figured this out, that they could just make fake ones and then take that huge margin themselves by shipping these to the States and selling them on the street or whatever. It was very lucrative. And this has been happening for years and years and years with sort of these third world manufacturers that can throw inauthentic parts and take some of the profit. So that was a big thing, and that has in fact come to Bitcoin, such that entirely fake ledgers and trezors have shown up. And it's even scarier than that. So you might even have an authentic trezor, but some of the parts that are inside might have gotten corrupted in the supply chain somewhere. I'm not aware of any specific incident where somebody's got one of these fake trezors and it's stolen their money, but that's an obvious attack vector, and it's just a matter of time where you'll get shipped a fake trezor that's corrupted in some way that detects that you have a certain balance on it and just steals your money. So yeah, the blogs of Trezor and Ledger and the popular wallets, they keep you up to date on sort of the status of the fake ones. So certainly take the time to go read all that stuff if you're securing via some of these products. Make sure you have an authentic one and you're not at risk for one of these. So a variation of that. So if you've ever bought one of these products, usually they have a security sticker on them. That's just security theater. There's nothing secure about that. They found on these fake wallets, they've faked the hologram on them. It's actually pretty easy to do. But not only that, it's very easy to get the right tools to dissolve the glue, such that they can open the box and then put the same sticker back on. You can't even tell the difference. So yeah, don't trust any of that necessarily. So another variation on this attack is they'll intercept these boxes in transit, and what they'll do is actually replace all the paper instructions that come with the device with different instructions that give them a pre-initialized seed phrase, and the instructions that say you entered these seed phrases into your Trezor. So you're like, oh, this is my Trezor, this is what they're telling me to do, and then you put money on it, and then they can steal your money because they know what the seed phrase is. So yeah, and you can see there's even typos on the sheet and and all that, but yeah, this is out there, this is happening. So be very wary that even though you've bought a product to help you out, you still need to understand how that product works and sort of understand the cryptographic principles of what the seed phrase means and all that. And yeah, this was even sort of your scratch and win ticket type stuff. So yeah, somebody put a decent amount of effort into printing these off to make it look authentic, even though they missed to capitalize. And yeah, you can Google sort of what the state of the art is, and you can even, if you've got a particular product or whatever, put a Google alert, such if there is a new attack or something, you get a notification on your phone that says, hey, you should read about this new attack on that device, kind of thing. And also, don't put all your eggs in one basket with trusting one. Diversifying your holdings across different brands and all that is good, such that if you do lose some, you're not losing your life savings.
I think with that, a lot of them, it was through eBay and a reseller. So
yeah,
with especially these hardware wallets, the bottom right from the manufacturer.
Yeah,
that's how they were. They were just selling it on eBay for a little bit cheaper. And
yeah,
that's the reason why.
Yeah. I think even on some of these, just some of the reading I did today, some of it came from Amazon, straight up from Amazon. So whoever's doing the fulfillment of that, or on a pallet, maybe they put some bad ones in the pallet of good ones, stuff like that. There are trusted resellers. One of them in particular in Western Canada is Crypto Asylum. I know Mike, I've met him. He's, it's out of his garage kind of thing. He's selling these. You can go on his website. So he's a guy that he's charging a little bit more than Amazon, but at least he's, as far as we know, a very trustworthy guy that he got his reputation and he's got his real name out there. And he's monitoring all the news feeds to find out what the latest is. So he's going to do his best to not sell you a bad unit. And then maybe there's some additional services there. So so looking into vendors like that. And similarly, Bitcoin Solutions and the other vendors, they have services to set you up with one of these. So then hopefully you're trusting them a little bit to kind of vet some of this for you. They'll be hip to this before it gets to the point of actually handing you the device. But still no guarantees. They could miss it as well. Okay, so this was over the holidays. There's the Chaos Computer Congress in Germany every year during the holidays, and there was a white hat hacker group. They're going under the name wallet.fail. That's actually a URL, so if you type that into your browser, wallet.fail, you can read all about the various attacks they did. I'm just highlighting kind of 3 of them. So at the top there, they were able to open up a Ledger Nano, and they were able to solder stuff onto the board and add an entire antenna inside the little device and then close it back up. So if somebody was to break into your house and find your Ledger and they were to modify it like that, they could have put crap in it, and then the next time you use it, your Ledger is then broadcasting your seed, to somebody that's listening from across the street, for example. So that's another reason to even though you have it, put it in a safe, put it in some place where it's going to be hard to find. Another interesting one. So a lot of these fancy hardware wallets are adding stuff like touchscreens. Touchscreens are kind of notorious for leaking radiation when you use them. So they were able to take a touchscreen device, and at the stage that you're entering the PIN code, they just had a radio listener that could then, just from the frequency being emitted, they could figure out what your PIN code is from, again, from across the street. Then that's, if they got your pins, then all they got to do is break into your house to take your actual device, and they've got your money. Probably the most sophisticated that they presented was, and they built this whole device, it's a Trezor glitcher. So if they crack open your Trezor and take the chip out, what this device does is, this is sort of a known technique, it throws the wrong voltages at the wrong pins at the wrong time. And what that can do is it can sort of coax the microcontroller to execute in ways that it wasn't supposed to. So they're able to do things like bypass the pin or put it into special mode such that the seed phrase was into memory, then they could read the seed phrase off of memory. So the bottom line is this: if you do have highly sophisticated criminals that can build stuff like this, and they do get to the point of stealing your Trezor, they can send it to the lab and they can get your seed phrase off your Trezor. And there's now published ways of doing that to be aware of. So yeah, definitely these things are not 100% safe. They're very safe, but are they $1 million safe? With stuff like this, there's a reason to believe maybe they're not $1 million safe. Okay, so there's also just like, this is something, some less sophisticated users that are interacting with Bitcoin, they'll Google a Bitcoin mobile wallet, and they'll find a web page of BitWallet. And it's got a very nice web page that tells you all about how secure and awesome it is. You load your coins into it, and it sends your coins to the wrong address, which is obviously their address. So this BitWallet, I think, got taken off the Android and the iOS store by now. But every once in a while, there's new wallets that are probably of the same kind of thing. So definitely, before you start using this software, research into it to make sure it's reviewed well, that it's legit, that it's an established brand that's been around for a while, that everybody knows who the developers are, and they have a certain amount of reputation at stake. And also that, other things like, is it open source software that's been audited? There's a lot of even highly rated wallets that aren't even open source. It's just, it's closed source, that's more secure. Well,
sometimes it sends the right transaction a couple times too, and then once you start doing a bigger one, it will make it fail and send it to their address. So just testing it by doing transactions doesn't work. Yeah.
So you do, small value transactions. Everything's good. Oh, wait, $10,000, that's mine. Give me that. Here's another one. This one, actually, they got, by now their certificate's been revoked. So this is just designed so that the URL actually says Bitcoin QR code generator in the URL, so it got a very high search ranking. So a naive user that's just typing, I have an address, I need the QR code because I got to scan it with my phone. They're going to find this in the Google search results. They're going to paste their address, and they say, generate me the QR code, and it shows a QR code for a different address, which obviously is, it's intentionally done that way to steal their money, right? Even a site like this can get a valid certificate, so everything looks good, but still, like, it's made to prey on people that don't really know what they're doing. Yeah, this isn't a very established brand, for example. You can do the same thing by pasting your address into blockchain.info, and it'll generate you the QR code on the page. That's typically how you do something like that, but not everybody knows that.
But those sites are still live, and there's probably many more like it.
Yeah, these sites are still live. They've gotten taken off the App Store, they've gotten their certificate revoked and that kind of thing. But there's just going to be more all the time, for sure.
So if you entered your address in there,
Mm-hmm.
and then said generate QR code, would you know immediately would you know right away that, I've just been scanned?
Maybe not. So you'd probably scan it with your phone, and then maybe your phone would say, it would list you the address, and you might notice that it's a different address, but you might not.
Right.
Yeah, particularly if you don't know what you're doing or just get confused or something, yeah.
Before you send, always double check.
Yeah.
And it should be the address you want to put in originally.
Yeah. And we've even heard comical stories of people getting scammed on multiple things at the same time, where they're falling victim to some one of these social engineering attacks, and then they go to pay the money, and then they fall victim to something like this. So the scammers are scamming
The scammer.
well, yeah. We laugh, but this is hard stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and particularly if somebody's in the wrong emotional state or whatever, they're not processing this at the same level. Yeah, and here's a website that somebody put up to look exactly like the official Trezor site, where you're going to be actually sending a transaction, and it's a fake. This one doesn't actually have that's what this window is, but yeah, it's going to tell you to do this certain thing, and it looks all official as Trezor, but at the end of the day, they're stealing your money. They're sending it to the wrong place, or you're typing in your seed phrase, and now they got your seed phrase. So yeah, be very careful that you know the URL, and that you're checking the certificate that it is in fact the site, and also there's a little your Trezor data damage ! There are all these phishing sites always have a couple tells of, they replicated it, but they didn't perfectly replicate it. So if something smells or feels a little bit fishy, slow down, particularly when there's a lot of money involved. So here's another one. So mining malware. So in the same way that your computer gets infected with some ransomware, that's a way of getting money off of you. What happens is the software gets on your computer, and your computer starts mining something like Monero, which is a currency that's designed to mine on CPUs. Just the algorithm is sort of friendly for CPUs. You don't need GPUs, you don't need ASICs. And also Monero is like a popular currency. It's fairly liquid and all that, so it's a decent price. So that's, once they have the Monero, they can convert that to Bitcoin or whatever they want out the other end. So the way that attack works is, they take the Monero, and you get the power bill for your CPU running for the entire month. So if you do the math like that, if you got a normal sort of average desktop computer, that might only be 10 cents, maybe 25 cents a month of electricity. But the people that are doing it, they're doing it across hundreds and thousands of different machines, so it adds up for them. So they're just stealing little bits of money in little places, but it's everybody else that's paying for it. So we actually have here Josh, who helps run GigSec. He's actually done a fairly serious body of work analyzing this malware for his job, or previous job. So actually in September 28th, he did a full presentations at B-Sides Edmonton, where he goes on a deep dive on some of the stuff going on here. So if you're interested in this, he's a wealth of knowledge. You can check out his presentation, and hopefully maybe in the future we can get him to present at the Edmonton Bitcoin meetup on related topics, if he's willing. And this is a recent one. So if you're watching the news, Ethereum Classic got 51% attacked. And what this is, the way this works, this is an attack on exchanges. Well, it's kind of an attack on the coin, but the people that lose the money are the exchanges. So the way this works is the person plotting the attack will deposit altcoins onto an exchange. So they might target, say, we're going to do this on Ethereum Classic today, so they're going to deposit a whole bunch of Ethereum Classic into an exchange. They're going to sell that Ethereum Classic, and they're going to immediately withdraw the Bitcoin. So they have the Bitcoin. Okay, then they're going to turn on their mining farm, and they're going to start rewinding the blocks of Ethereum Classic. So they're going to go back before the time that they deposited the Ethereum Classic, and they're going to start rewriting the blockchain to exclude the transaction that deposited it. And then they're going to send that money somewhere else, so such that those are then conflicting transactions. And because they have the hash power, and the hash power is the source of truth in this system, that stands as the official transaction, the one that did not go to the exchange. So the attacker keeps the Bitcoin, and they keep their altcoin. And the exchanges are out of money in that case. And this is becoming more and more popular, and actually some of these mid-tier coins like Ethereum Classic, like Bitcoin Gold, and a number of others have had attacks like this. Largely because they're kind of GPU-heavy coins in their mining. Particularly with the price drop, the hash power of all these coins are dropping with it. So people that have all these graphics cards are unprofitable. They can't make any money being honest, mining in an honest fashion, but they can make money robbing banks. So they choose to do that instead. And that's a way to make use of their depreciating asset. So that is the overview of all the things. So yeah, we turn it over to Q&A, and usually also we like to broaden the discussion to other topics that are off topic from the presentation. But yeah, first questions, I guess, on topic is what we'd like. And speak up too, because that laptop's our microphone.
It's an important point, sorry, ETC don't return to the same exchange that got blocked or whatever.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that they returned the ETC. They said they wanted to just prove a point, and so they returned the money, but they didn't have to do that.
It
Wasn't all of it? Okay. And we don't actually know how many exchanges they actually hit.
What's the, trying to remember the name of the group that was tracking it from the beginning there.
Yeah.
You can Google it. But, they just put out on Twitter today the total number of coins that were stolen and show the transactions going back to Gate. I think it's Gate.io, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I think they were returned 100,000 or something like that, but it was more than that. 65,000, something like that they returned.
Yeah.
But it was more than that.
There's quite a number of exchanges that don't, particularly ones that trade in sort of these low-tier altcoins. They don't require any identity documents. So somebody could have stole money under a fake name that they used to log in. So there's no way to actually trace that back.
Unless they're tracking it.
Yeah, but there's ways to obfuscate that as well, yeah.
They take some protection sometimes, like if you see an exchange and they require like a very large amount of confirmations, part of that is to prevent kind of losing money on a 51% attack where they require like 80 or 100, just because like at that point it becomes a little bit more difficult to conduct that attack versus something like with Bitcoin after 6 confirmations you're pretty much more or less safe.
I think Gate was only at like 15 comp or something like that on ETC prior to this, and now they're at 4,000.
So you get it in about a month, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be transferring back and forth. It's changed quite a lot.
Actually, one thing I remember was, I can't remember the specifics of it, but there was something with Copay where they had, but which is a legitimate wallet. It was for a while anyways, and one of the packages at dependency libraries was compromised or something. I can't remember what the specifics of whether it switched up the QR code or something, but that was another.
Yeah.
When I read that, it was quite scary because it's like that's like been a pretty legitimate wallet for a while.
Yeah,
And
we
then-
were using Copay and stopped using it after that.
Electrum 2 had issues recently.
Yeah. There's also been a class, this is, maybe I could have added this as a bullet point somewhere, but there's a class of attack even where these exchanges support a whole bunch of coins, and then periodically they get software updates that come from the project. So if this is a super low tier altcoin, the project that's shipping that code could send malware as part of their upgrade, which is now software that's running on the exchange, which can then steal money from all the others. Every piece of software every coin that the exchange supports is another attack vector on that exchange.
I don't know if Copay was there was something where you said Copay there, and I think I might be thinking about a different library. We were only using a JavaScript-based cryptographic library.
Someone else
They knew that where the seed was coming from, with the Unix time and JavaScript, so they would basically replay back if they could figure out when the original private key would generate, something like that. Go back to that point in time and regenerate from that same point effectively. And they were able, because it wasn't a very sophisticated generator, the random noise, and it wasn't strong enough. So there was a proof that, I don't know if it's actually used, but the proof was they predicted some think they did it with leaked private keys, and they went back and basically re-rolled those private keys, so they could predict, like, we know when this private key was made, so we're going to go and try and recreate that private key offline, overhit it, and they were able to get the same private key generated, which gave them the confidence to say we can go now and generate private keys as long as we've got some roundabout information. So I don't know if that was copay, but it was something in a similar, like, where it was basically a standard library, a cryptographic library, and this is like JavaScript.
Is there any data that would say if, like, really we're talking about theft, and whether it be back in the day it was, stealing your wallet, your physical wallet, or you're getting your PIN card, your PIN number, off of you punching it in, and, you see all the Interact saying hide your PIN and all, that kind of stuff. And, so there's always going to be a percentage of the population, whatever that percentage is, that cheats, and that steal. And any data that says that it's about the same as the rest of the world, but just it's now a new technology, and they're just using that as the next technology that they're using to cheat, or is it same, higher, lower? Any data that we know of at that point?
I'd argue that it's like super high. Like that cryptocurrency is like, I don't know, a very high percentage of fraudulent transactions.
Right.
Yeah, I would say it just enabled the fact that there's this overseas corridor that you can get the third world people that see the first world as prey,
Yeah.
such that they can actually get away with the money if they can actually pull off the scam.
Right, and so that was my thought of the fact of that, like a Nigerian prince, we've heard that for many years, but when it first started, people were getting scammed all the time, right? And then just like the next one where it's like, oh yeah, this is Johnny, your grandson or whatever, I'm in, whatever, you gotta send me some money. It used to be, through an e-transfer or Western Union or whatever, and they use that as the bridge of the scam.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin or the alternate coins are just a new bridge or a new opportunity for them.
Yeah, I would see that bridge as like a huge, like hyperloop. Like it is just the nature of Bitcoin in that the payments are irreversible.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do to hide your identity. It makes it just so much more enticing for criminals to actually pull off these scams of Bitcoin, and easier for them too. So I would agree that although I don't think we have any hard data, I think it is a very higher percentage that.
Right.
So one thing we know is like this has been happening on gift cards before Bitcoin existed.
Right, exactly.
Is like the money laundering people, the drug dealers, whatever, they would buy cash, with cash, they'd buy these gift cards,
Right.
buy the merchandise, and then sell the merchandise. Bitcoin's just another tool in that tool set.
Right.
Such that they could flip those for Bitcoin or vice versa
Exactly.
or whatever. But and companies like Walmart have vigorously defended the right to issue gift cards because it's lucrative profit.
Right.
And it's probably a huge percentage of that profit is just straight up money laundering.
Right. Well, exactly. And
Yeah.
Bitcoin is the new thing on the block, and 5 years from now, it might come back to normal. People will then understand the workings of how to make sure that like your QR code and the code underneath, make sure that that's the right address. Before you go, I understand.
The awareness and education will definitely, I think, in time, hopefully catch up to kind of like the new nature of these scams.
What's that?
Seems to me like there's a whole lot of really smart people out there who could use their really smartness for something better. Instead of ripping other people off. It's crazy.
Another really good one. Sorry, I don't mean to not.
Right.
A good scam that I've seen is that people use Twitter accounts with, like, they'll compromise a Twitter account that's verified, so it has like a blue check mark, and then they'll change their Twitter account, like not the handle itself, but like the name that shows up above the handle to a famous person. Like a really common one is Elon Musk, and then they'll say, hey, if you send me like one BTC, or usually they use Ether or whatever, but if you send me one Ether, then I'll send you like 5 back just as part of this promotion or whatever, or I'll send you a huge discount on like a Tesla or whatever, and then tons of people will just fall for that, like literally just somebody saying that. Just because it's like,
It's such a low effort thing. You can also make most of it, so why not just do it? That's what you referred to spam email before with the Nigerian prince rate.
Right.
And we've kind of dealt with a lot of spam email because it still happens. We don't see it now because the filters work really well and they got quite sophisticated. But the cost of sending a single spam email, I actually met a spam email person in real life years ago. He was trying to do it for the greater good, which is kind of funny hearing his story. But he said the cost of a single spam email, and it was, insignificant. And he needed to get something like 1 in 5 million emails as a hit. And he was selling something like a Viagra or something similar to that. So it was about, if he made $12 out of every 5 million emails he sold, that was profitable.
Wow.
So for the cost of energy to go into doing that, it's like,
hit rate,
why not?
The hit rate is so low, it's like,
Makes casting really light.
well, yeah, exactly.
So what we're seeing here with an entirely digital asset, especially like the Monero mining and things like that. Once you've got that system running, it's just self-running, it's replicating, it's trying to seed, it's just a no-brainer. You can automate the whole end-to-end process. You can infect someone's PC, it can mine, it can send those coins in through mining to a wallet, and you can just sleep in bed and reap rewards. So why not? As long as there's nobody knocking on your door from the law office to solve that one.
I have a question. Have you observed like any, like aside from blog posts and like individual contributions, have you seen like any companies aside from like hardware wallets trying to make things safer, like overall?
Yeah, so one thing about Bitcoin is there's a lot of like open source contributions that lots of people have a financial pad and they want just Bitcoin to succeed. So like there's, and a lot of even businesses, like some people that are in the room, like their biggest barrier to entry is getting the consumers on board, like educating them and then keeping the consumers safe, right? To make sure they don't get scammed. So there's lots of stuff all over the place. I'm not sure that really it's mature enough that there's sort of leading voices, like in security, there's kind of like your Bruce Schneier or whatever that's got a blog that everybody reads. I don't think we're quite at that point yet. I'd imagine those figures will kind of emerge in time. Like popular authors, so one of the most popular authors is like Andreas Antonopoulos. He's got a bunch of talks and books that have come on, touched on some of these topics, and he's made a bunch of money. I expect he'll write more books coming up, but somebody like that could kind of adopt this stuff as sort of their shtick to be a popularizer of kind of the education side of things.
I think what Locke was doing was along that same vein.
Jameson Locke, you're talking? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He's kind of targeting high net worth custodial solutions.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
And he's a really nice guy. Like at the U of A, I don't know, there's probably some people, like the student group there just emailed him and like, hey, can you talk at our student group? And he Skyped in and he gave a talk, right? Like he's just there to help. And there's people of that personality type that are just out there doing that.
I think it's the short-term and long-term thinking. Like the scammers, if you can get up mining malware, you can operate that. Like tonight, you could go home and start operating something, and maybe start reaping rewards over the next couple of days. Now, in long-term, you're causing damage, but your thinking isn't long-term. You're trying to get something and get out. So, like what Jared's referring to there is people that are investing for the long-term. Like if everybody starts using Bitcoin and Bitcoin's good, those people that have been spending that time and effort are there for the long run, and they get to reap rewards, hopefully, in the long run. We're at that wave right now where we've got high level of corruption and in terms of like attacks, and it all feeds bad and negative onto the entirety of the thing. So when somebody uses fiat currency for drug money and things like that, people don't start hating on money as a concept. I'm not using dollars anymore, I just use the drugs. But we're very much in that branding bubble right now, where if something bad happens to Bitcoin or using Bitcoin, then Bitcoin is bad. So, trying to use this education saying that it's not Bitcoin that's bad, it's just bad people using Bitcoin. And hopefully we can figure out ways to educate and improve things so that it makes it harder for those people.
Yeah.
While then people start to see what the benefits of Bitcoin is over just the negative stories, which do very well in the press, no doubt.
Yeah, it's just like there was a comment there, one of the last meetings, that, like you could be talking to somebody on the phone, on the phone, could be in Timbuktu, Africa, and saying, yeah, whatever the scam is, go to an ATM, Bitcoin ATM, and I'll send you the QR code, and it's just a picture of theirs, and they don't even know what they're doing, and who they're actually sending it to, just because they don't know, because the general public, isn't that savvy yet about what Bitcoin is, let alone how to use it.
Yeah, it's sad to hear people's first interaction with Bitcoin is being driven to a Bitcoin ATM, having to pay some tax bill or pay ransom or pay. That leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. That is still not a good sign to happen. Rather, you hear people hear about Bitcoin for the first time, it'd be a curious thing, a beneficial thing, and, definitely not a negative thing, but that's reality of the game right now.
No, exactly, and I think time will just will help that. As society in general, if you say the word Bitcoin, most everybody kind of knows the name, but won't know how to actually buy one.
Same Bitcoin in Venezuela right now.
Yeah.
I think they would find some positives.
Yeah. No, exactly. And you fast forward 5, maybe 10 years, and it'll be a totally different. We might not even having this discussion anymore.
It'll be all. I hope one day it's very boring.
Yeah.
Why are we sat in a room talking about Bitcoin? We're sat in a room talking about dollars. It sounds boring to me. So,
Yeah.
This is happening with
scams. We talk about that, right?
Yeah.
How Visa prevents scamming and so on. That's like topic, right?
It is a topic, but we need a broader reason to come together and have that discussion. A general security meeting or something like that. But it's nice that we're 10 years in. Bitcoin is not a centralized business that's got a marketing budget that's sold itself on people. It's all word of mouth. Now we can look at things that are much younger than 10 years. If somebody gets scammed over iTunes cards, I'm sure they don't go hating on iTunes right now because iTunes is very respected and known, somewhat respected, known because Apple have put a huge amount of marketing dollars behind it to be synonymous with just where you get music from. None of that's happened with Bitcoin. There's zero branding gone into this. Everything about this entire project has just been somebody came up with an idea and that's how the logo came around. And somebody came up with this and that's how that came around. And word of mouth just helped fuel that thing go forward. So it's still great to see that. 10 years is not a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Partially signed transactions might be worth a mention and work being done to increase security on Bitcoin.
What way do you mean? Like that's it's a pretty.
Like
there's lots of cool stuff you can do with it, but what do you mean?
If there's people working with improving Bitcoin itself, with partially signed transactions, you can do some stuff that hardware wallets don't allow you to do now. And that would be signing transactions offline and without having to put your key on a device that's connected to the internet, and you can't get it hacked that way.
Assuming key generation originally wasn't.
Yeah.
There was another one actually that goes back to the Trezors and the ledgers. Is because of their small screen size, I think it's the ledger only shows you a partial of your key. Now, if you can get that information, and that's maybe 5 characters that you then just need to clone. So if you can replace that portion of the key, it looks like, because you're not seeing the complete key, and the keys are kind of weird language and stuff like that. So these kind of partial hacks are something that people are trying to focus on right now, because that's a much smaller thing to hit. And it's the same with the QR code. You say you're going to generate a QR code from your key. Now typically, and we all do this, you look at the QR code, you read the first 5 characters, and you go, yeah, that's right, because I'm not reading all 20 some characters. But that gives people the incentive to say, if I can just spin up the first 5 characters that are the same as yours, I'm sure you're just going to ignore the rest. And if you don't, then the next person might, and the next person might.
Right.
And carry on. So those vectors, again, come down to whether we trust the device or whether we're a bit lazy, and we're all very lazy when it comes to doing things over and over again.
One question I have is on the actual wallet code. You got your QR code and then your actual wallet code. I got capital letters and smaller case letters, and I'm assuming that like if you exchange the capital D to the smaller letter D, that changes the wallet address.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it will probably not generate a valid address.
Yeah.
It'll just change one character.
There's a check
Not
on
every.
it.
You can't just change one.
Yeah, I'm
It's
just thinking,
Yes.
I just thought of that just now, but never even would have thought that might have been the case, but that's just, how just that little bit of information, people can use it to do things with, right?
So I'd be curious to know that we've scared the shit out of it. Like, just what's, what everyone, just a survey that everyone, like, in terms of safeguards, like, what everybody does.
Well, you
to
take
sort
around
of,
people's houses.
like, I'm just thinking, like,
How do you keep yours secure?
obviously not getting specific. I've mentioned it. Give me a few years.
Why are you asking this question?
No, it's just me. I'm serious. Like, just buy directly from the vendor, kind of thing. Like, that's one. Another one I would say would be just to wait a while to do upgrades. Like with the Treasurer today, they released an upgrade to the firmware. It's like I went to the Treasurer subreddit. There's a guy posting that he's having trouble restoring his balance now that he's done that upgrade. Like just things like that. Like
I'm a bit manic with my keys, so I only generate on an offline device to create a paper wallet, actually print out the damn wallet, and then I buy the steel, right?
Crypto
steel. Yeah. There's a couple of Bill Fodel and yeah. But those are awesome.
So are you punching your a seed down on the crypto steel, or are you actually punching that or a private key?
And what is that key?
So close.
And where do you start?
Have physical security for it.
Pardon me?
Do you encrypt the key before you put it in it, or do you just have physical security for it?
I've only done just straight paper. Like or sorry,
26 again.
Straight private key.
I should say, when I create a paper wallet, it is password protected.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So
it is encrypted, I guess.
Yeah, it's encrypted.
Yeah.
that way. Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't look any different, right?
Yeah, that's
So I guess I'll ask this question because for me, I'm less and I guess about a year into crypto. Actually, money in the game probably less than maybe about 6 months, and the value that I have in there is not much. Okay, not like I've got 3 or 4 Bitcoin or more type thing. But so I guess the question that I would have as I know more than just the general public, but the things that I found so difficult is actually getting that fiat into the cryptocurrency side of things, and then understanding. Like I understand, okay, well, you don't want to leave it on an exchange because that's like leaving your wallet at not even your friend's place, but your friend's neighbor. Okay, so you're trusting somebody else, whether or not they're trustworthy or the people that are going to go there to steal from him. If you got $500, on a wallet or whatever, there's a certain level of personal comfort that everyone has you know, and but if you've got, let's just say you actually have some money that's invested in, and you got $100,000 or, you know, let's say 10 Bitcoin, you know, but you want to trade that and actually do market trades. How would you go about that other than keeping it on,
Exchange?
an
Run a
exchange?
full node wallet, it's Yuka keys.
Say that again?
Run a full node wallet, it's Yuka keys.
See, and that to me wasn't English, so.
So if you run a full Bitcoin node, right?
Okay.
Then you publish transactions to the blockchain yourself,
I see, okay.
right?
Because
So
you
when
have a
it's-
full Bitcoin,
No,
so.
because you're running the node.
Oh,
So you're running
software.
the software that's connected to all the other nodes.
Right, okay.
But you want to do day trading, is that?
Well, and then,
Well,
like,
no.
well, day trading, swing trading,
Yeah.
you know,
So I'm
like
saying-
not a process of every 6 months I'm buying or selling.
Yeah, well,
Right.
it's going to be a trade-off, right? Like, it's in terms of convenience and security, they're almost always on kind of opposite ends in the space, right?
Right,
So it's
yeah.
like how fast you want it, but also how secure do you want to keep it, right? There's always going to be some inconvenience if you want a very secure method in terms of the time it'll take you to get your Bitcoin out and move it and do something with it.
Yeah.
Versus if you want to do that quickly, you know, you can go the simplest route, which is just like a mobile wallet, but it's really insecure.
Right.
So it's kind of like on a spectrum, and you just really need to kind of personally find where you're comfortable in terms of
Right.
that convenience and that security.
It's your risk tolerance.
Right,
Exactly.
and I know where that risk tolerance is for me personally, and I'm not there yet in value, but if I ever do get there, you know, and I'm like, okay, if I've got, you know, let's just call it 10 grand. I'm just picking a number, right? So if I've got $10,000, you know, on a, you know.
You have 3 Bitcoin.
Or just a prepaid Visa because I'm going on holidays. Okay. Well, how am I going to keep that in my front pocket, in my wallet, in my suitcase, or where? Those are things that I understand or can relate to. But yet then, you know, I guess if I got $100,000, I'm not going to be, you know, playing it on the stock exchange either, right? So.
Yeah, you probably would treat it similar to kind of cash, right? I mean, if you go on a vacation, what are you comfortable with in your wallet that if it gets stolen, like it gets lost? What are you comfortable with? Like a lot of people, it really
Exactly.
depends.
And that's the
$100
thing.
or $1,000.
Correct, right? And whatever that number is personally, you just go, okay, if I'm under this, if that's $500 for one person or $5,000 for the other person, you can kind of go do these things. Or if it's above your threshold or comfort level, try and do these things.
Yeah, so I think for a lot of people, like, I mean, it really varies, but personally I'd say anything over 1,000, do not keep on a mobile or a wallet or software wallet.
Right.
Usually you can go up, you know, hardware device, but if you, as an example, you guys know who the Winklevoss twins
Yeah.
are, the Gemini founders. I mean, this isn't confirmed, they always deny it, but when you get up to a certain amount of money, you take more and more protections. So they pretty much like split up, or it's rumored they split up their private keys across different banks and so on and so forth.
Right.
So for me, like I would say anything, you know, $500, it's like having it in a wallet, just a mobile wallet. Anything above 500 or 1,000, you keep in a Trezor ledger if you still need to access it. I
Right.
mean, if you don't need to touch it, just make it secure in a paper wallet. And then I'd say anything over 10,000 is probably best to have it in cold storage.
Right.
People can make their own
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, yeah.
It's been the biggest game changer for myself. I have nothing on a hot wallet. Never have loaded a wallet on my phone with any funds. It's all been different cold wallets, and I've been like put a node on a Raspberry Pi. I've been playing around with that, but that's completely beyond anything that I've done before, right? So that's a whole. You don't want to be playing with your money. You don't want to wait until you need it to learn that stuff because it's
Well, and that's
especially if it's not.
hence why I asked.
I have no
you know, I
computer
asked,
science
and
background. I was
for
playing
me,
around with shit coins and their daemons and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was the only reason I knew what that was. And so when I started playing with my Bitcoin, I was a little bit more worried and concerned and focused on it. And it's just a process, and I want to be comfortable that I know what I'm doing, right? Yeah, okay, I followed someone's guide. Did they fuck me? Like, I don't know. Like, did they screw me somewhere? There's a lot of these, like, command line things. I didn't understand what I was writing in there. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's been very good coming to these meetups and the hack day and stuff and picking the boys' brains on that stuff. So,
And
There's a
another-
lot to it, but yeah,
It's definitely a complicated.
it's doable.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One example actually is that you always want to keep a kind of awareness of where Bitcoin is at, because when these meetups started, 2013, right, the price of Bitcoin is quite different. So, people, for example, we'd be at Remedy and they would accept Bitcoin. So, looking back at some of those transactions, you can see like very large amounts in Bitcoin, what's considered today.
Right.
Back then, they were just putting on their
Yeah,
mobile wallet.
it's the whole, bought a pizza for, 15 Bitcoin and,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
what-
if you do choose
Yeah.
to expose your Bitcoin and keep it on some of these more convenient methods, is that something you should always be aware of? Is that if we do get some kind of enormous price spike again, and all of a sudden that $500 on your phone is $5,000,
Right.
it's definitely something you should always keep in the back of your mind.
Correct.
And a lot of times, some people they go back during these price spikes and they try to find all their old wallets and their hardware wallets and their paper wallets, and they're like, wow, like money out of my back pocket. It's not like finding $20. It's like finding,
Put on an old jacket.
Yeah,
and
like
found $100 in
it was like
but now it's-
$2,000
now it's three, yeah.
and it was just laying around in some piece of software, basically virtually exposed to attackers. So that's another thing that we probably should want to be cognizant of going forward.
Correct. And just like if, let's just take it out of the Bitcoin, bubble or, and put it into a fiat. Well, if you got, $100 million, you're not going to keep that in cash in your wallet. And,
I would never know. I have no idea what I do.
You haven't really thought of that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
that's like, this is exactly what, like, Trace Mary talks about this extensively, he helped his friend set up, his friend had money, he bought $1 million worth of Bitcoin back in the day, right? And he locked up his private keys, and he lost it, right? And it's lost to the blockchain, it's lost to everything, right? There's no recovering it, but he didn't take $1 million worth of precaution.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
He did his little test transaction. He had threw $10 worth on his little wallet there, and he was happy with that. And then he put $1 million on it and kept the same amount of security, right?
Right.
So I mean, like you say, you treat your wallet differently than you treat your vault.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just learning all the different, ways to do things, because it's similar steps,
Well,
just different.
Say for
process.
example, like you want to be able to buy Pepsi at the Lightning machine here, or
Yeah.
play a song in the jukebox. You're going to need a way to do that with your phone, for example.
Right.
So some good apps like Samurai Wallet, for example, is a good one, right? You can keep $100 on your phone without really losing sleep at night.
No, exactly.
Right? And that, you can buy 100 Pepsis with that, and that
Yeah.
gets you through, right? But, you don't walk around with your cold storage private keys in your pocket and wash it in your blue jeans, right?
Exactly.
All right, well, let's call it at that. You're feel free to stick around and mingle and chat about related topics for sure.
Thanks, guys.
So yeah, thanks for coming out.